Committee. I have apologies from Councillor Crystal, who is moved by Councillor Wright and Councillor Crown. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Any conflicts of interest? There being none, the only note that I will make is that Councillor Simpson and I have been appointed to hear a hearing, which is covered off in the update, and that is a matter of course and doesn't propose any particular conflict, but just noting that for Council and for the record. No announcements by myself, any by you, Mayor Wise? I will now call for minor matters if there are anything not on the agenda. There being none, we'll move on to management announcements, and I'd like to introduce Rachel Bailey and Dan Hicks to speak to us over a couple of items I asked for updates to this committee on. First is the Napier Assist, Whina Tangata, an update on how that is going, and then also, as I flagged with you in an earlier committee, there's a couple of regulatory matters around the mobility parking that I've asked Rachel to come and speak to as well. So, welcome.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. Through you, Madam Chair. Napier Assist, Whina Tangata, has in its fourth week, I think, now, and it's going really, really well. We've provided some updates to you before, but I thought it might be good to give you a little bit more in terms of how we're tracking, and also introduce Dan Hicks, who's the team leader for the Napier Assist team, is largely responsible for the implementation and its successes so far. So Dan's going to cover off, how's it sort of going on the ground for the team, and I just wanted to share some stuff as to where we're at currently in terms of implementation. So, really in the fourth week, we've enjoyed fantastic support from our partners. It's been, that early work we did around the design and bringing those partners into that design work has absolutely paid off, not in terms of, in terms of getting it really clear about what sort of service we wanted and what the culture of that service would look like, and but also in terms of getting investment from those partners. So, Hastings District Council have been very supportive in terms of how to set it up, but also they've helped train our team before they were let loose on Napier. And Hamilton City Council, Police, WIT, Lift, and the Napier City Business Inc., just to name a few really, who we are working with on the daily at the moment. And then as well as our existing council teams, the parks team, our parking team, and our compliance team, they're all working really well with the Napier Assist team. And some of the examples that Dan will sort of talk you through will demonstrate how that's going. We've currently got 8 staff, including Dan. We're still recruiting. And the 8th person who is due to join us is actually the identical twin brother of one we've already got. So that's going to make it interesting for everyone. Yeah, they'll think that person's very hardworking.
Seen everywhere. Yeah.
They come from a really diverse set of backgrounds, and I think this is key to how the team are able to handle the stuff that they're facing. Backgrounds like welfare support, youth justice, security, probation, police. And again, I think some of the examples Dan will talk to you about sort of demonstrates how those skills are working. They're also undertaking little training sessions with each other in terms of their backgrounds and knowledge and how they can sort of upskill each other in that space. So it's really neat. They work varying shifts between sort of 7 in the morning to 6 at night. So trying to capture that, the city starting to fill up and then emptying out again. And that's now 7 days a week, but we don't, not every day. We don't have the capacity yet for that, but that's what we're recruiting towards. And we'll place ourselves primarily in the main CBD, but we are starting to stretch out into Taradale and other commercial centres now as our resourcing and our radio network allows us to do so. Took a while to get that up and running and make sure our team was safe out there. And really the CCTV monitoring, so we've gone from we've now got access, or will have soon access to 28 existing cameras, so 18 that we started monitoring right from the get-go, and then another 10 that will take on very soon. And all those cameras were monitored to this until we started. And again, you'll see the monitoring component of what we're doing is really valuable and completely complements the patrolling aspect. So we're looking obviously to continue to grow our CCTV and with the funding that you've given us, and to make sure it is located in the most optimum places and can respond to rising areas or areas of interest that we want to target. So yeah, I mean, overall, I'm really happy with the progress. We didn't anticipate that would be actually perhaps this far advanced after 4 weeks. Originally, I thought, well, we might get the CCTV up and running, but depending on recruitment, it might not work that well. But the team has, and the quality of them has certainly excelled our expectations in 4 weeks' time. So I'll hand over to Dan, and he's just going to run you through some sort of examples and some scenarios of what's been happening out there, and you'll get a sense of the type of service that we're delivering.
Right, so kia ora everyone. I'm Dan Hicks. As Rachel's already mentioned, I'm the team leader for Awhina Tangata, Napier Assist. So I thought it would be handy to run you through what the day looks like for Napier Assist and the week. So the shift starts with a morning lineup amongst the team at our office, and they run through what they want to achieve for the day, and then from there they pair up and they start their shift by going to the outreach centre, whatever it takes, down by Clive Square. And that's because whatever it takes is obviously a stakeholder, and it gives them a bit of a lay of the land. They get to see who's going to be around during the day as well, and who might pop up later on in the day. So that relationship's working really, really well, and that's a daily thing. So every morning they go to whatever it takes, regardless, to catch up with the manager there at the outreach. Then from there, it's up to them pretty much to sort out their patrol area, I guess, for the rest of the day. And they are primarily prevention focused, so they will try and prevent stuff from happening before it's happened, if that makes sense. But the camera operator, someone that's stayed back at the office to keep an eye on the cameras, will dispatch them or direct them to go to certain areas if they think that something might come a cropper during the day. Once a week, there's a line-up with the community constables and the intelligence section from the police, the local police. So that's been going really well as well. And again, another stakeholder, some more engagement with the police, and the team have worked really well in collaboration with the police for certain things that have transpired over the last 4 weeks. Yeah, so I thought it also might be handy for you to hear some of the examples of some of the good work stories that have come out in the last 4 weeks. There are so many, it's crazy. I wasn't expecting this much feedback as well from the public, the retailers and whatnot as well, but I've just picked a few to give you kind of an idea of the variety of the work they're carrying out. So a few weeks back, the Napier City Council gardener phoned in to say that someone had passed out drunk in the gardens, and the camera operator got to see what was happening, how it was unfolding, the event, and then two of the team grabbed a first aid kit and went down to the gardens to see whether or not it was a medical event. We used the police radio to call up for ambulance in case, first aid was required. The team got there within, I think it was about 2 minutes. They arrived, and they were able to prevent that person from becoming a victim of theft or an assault, because basically people had started congregating to the area, had seen this person was vulnerable, and they essentially prevented crime from occurring, really. They managed to get that person home. Ambulance wasn't required. They were stood down, and it was a beautiful sunny day in Napier, and that as a result, that park was peace and order was restored, and I think that was a really good work story, and I got to witness it on the cameras as well, so I got to see the team working in collaboration with the camera operator as well. So that was just one example of a council gardener raising the flag, the cameras and the Napier Assist officers all working together to quash something without the need for a response from police or ambulance on that day. Another example was when one of the council parking officers had seen that a vehicle was crashed and it was parked on a greenbelt area near a creek in Napier. He grabbed some brief details of the person that was in the vehicle so that they were sleeping in their vehicle, and had passed those on to Napier Assist officers. One of the staff members has an MSD background, and the weather was terrible that day, and so they used the downtime, the bad weather, to go back to the office and make the necessary referrals to try and help this person out. Transpired that the person was from out of town, out of district, crashed his car in the bad weather, had no money, couldn't get back home, and so Napier Assist made the referrals to MSD, whatever it takes as well, and I think they also assisted with getting trade towage involved to get the crashed vehicle off the greenbelt area as well. So that was a good example of them making referrals to other agencies to help someone out. And the last few days we've had a couple of examples as well that I think highlight how valuable the team are. Recently, a couple of nights ago, there was a report that someone was sleeping rough around by the sound shell in Napier. A couple of the staff went to go and investigate and found that the person was mentally unwell. Their mother arrived on scene as well, and they had started the ball rolling with mental health, with DHB, and our team were able to assist them with that as well. So that was someone that was in need, and Napier Assist were there on hand to help out and assist as well. And then more recently, I decided to go for a run one night, and I noticed a Napier Assist officer on Marine Parade, and I went and spoke to them to see what was happening, because it was quite late at night, towards the end of the shift. It was starting to get a bit dark. Turns out that there was, so he pointed out to me that there was a very young girl playing in on the beach down by the water's edge. It was really high surf that day, so it was dangerous, and he had spoken to the mother, who was further up the beach, to warn her of the dangers, the risk posed at that area. He knew there were no cameras as well, so that our camera operator couldn't keep tabs on that person. So he essentially possibly prevented a drowning or an incident anyway at the beach by giving advice to the mother, to the daughter as well, warning her of the dangers. And that might seem insignificant to some people, but I'm very aware of how many drownings we've had along that beach, and I think that in itself was work well done by the Napier Assist officer. So those are just some examples. There are seriously so many examples, but I don't want to bore you to tears with them.
And finally, next week I think we've got a little open hour. It's not exactly an open day, but an open hour in which we've invited guests, and I hope that you can come along and meet the team proper, and you can, get to know them and ask them any questions. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel and Dan, for the report. That's awesome. Is there any questions from councillors? Councillor Tapane.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. First of all, Rachel, just acknowledging the turnover of your staff, the effort they would have taken to recruit and reappoint those people. So really glad to hear that you're getting capacity back on board with your team, because you are one of our forward-facing members. So the other point I would just mention, more of a comment, I've got my questions coming, and that was to it's really, really exciting to also see how your team has come together really quickly, recognising their diversity and driving that into a fantastic result, which has elevated your program and the delivery of it above your expectations and ours. So, ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. My question to you is around monitoring, tracking and data. So you spoke about how we're using the cameras to provide an extra layer of safety for not only the city, but the staff in these high-risk situations. Are there any other things we're doing to track incidences, hotspots, areas of development that might become a concern? How else are we supporting the activity of our staff in that digital space to build a picture of those types of areas that might become hotspots for the city team, urban design team to consider, et cetera, et cetera?
So I can answer that question for you if you like. So the team are using an application on their cell phones for reporting purposes, and that gives us the geodata required. It maps everything for all the incidents they've got, breaks it down. There are certain incidents that they can select from as well. So at the click of a button, we can literally drag up a report showing exactly where all the graffiti, all the tagging, where the homeless people were, those incidents. So that is available already. We're only 4 weeks in, but I looked at it yesterday, the data, and it's really, really good. It's a good reporting tool. They've been using it right from day one, and that will help us crazy for future locations, for hotspots, like you mentioned. So we're already in that space now.
I think in addition to that, through you, Madam Chair, the team are very connected up with all of the agencies, and on the daily are talking and sharing just information with each other. And so that sort of korero is happening every day. And we also have a police radio within the CCTV room, and we are sharing, we're listening in to what is occurring. And often when we hear something, our camera operators will immediately zoom into that area, and one incident of that was that they were able to aid the police in an arrest by giving a really good description of the person and following them on cameras to a place to where they had fled to, and the police were able to pick them up from there. So, it's that more informal sharing that really works as well. We will try to develop up something more formal in terms of reporting some of the stuff, what you're talking about. We also have taken a data snapshot, if you like, of I guess some areas of data that would help us understand whether we're being successful or not. So from the day we started, shoplifting statistics and, violent offending and disorder and things like that. And we've sort of captured that data at a moment in time. And we'll probably look to see what is happening in terms of what impact we are having on those sort of statistics over the course of us operating.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Rachel, for that. That's fabulous to see the work that's happening and the real difference it's making on the ground. And I think that's exactly what Council was looking for when it invested in the service. So we look forward to hearing how it continues and seeing how those metrics can help inform us in our city planning and all the other functions we do as Council as well. So thanks, team. Max. Oh, I see Maxine has her hand up.
Sorry.
I'll pass over. Hi, Max.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor. Well done, congratulations. This is fantastic. It's something that the retailers have asked us for over several cycles of LTPs, seeing what was happening in Hastings, and it's just wonderful to see it put into place here. I just had a question about your deployment of your team in, for example, Mariwa Shopping Centre. If you have a program of being out there at certain times, because the retailers have been concerned over the last few years about inappropriate behaviour in that shopping centre, particularly as some of the shops close. And secondly, if a retailer in Mariwa saw something developing that isn't quite at the police stage but is distressing or obviously needs some kind of intervention that they can't manage are you available on call, or do you just go out at certain times of the week or the month? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. The we the Mariwa Shopping Centre. Yes, of course, we're available. So I won't turn around to look at it, but if any retailer at the Mariwa Shopping Centre wanted to call customer services, we would absolutely get a Napier Assist officer out there. That's no problem at all. Just a standard customer service line. In terms of when we'll go out there, we will absolutely be out there and have quite a strong presence there on Ikawa and Taradale. The times of which we'll do that, we don't want to structure. There's value in us sort of just popping up and people who might be causing problems in that area not exactly knowing when we might be there or not. So we'll sort of work it in with all the other things that we do and try and have a presence there as much as anywhere else. Yeah.
Thanks, Max. And one final comment, Councillor Tapani.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take the opportunity because I know that on occasion during my term on council, regulation and I have had to go head to head on a couple of things that I've represented the interests of some of our residents. So it's a really difficult position and role to fulfil within our community, but absolutely essential. And so my comment to you is that this is a fantastic example of where regulation puts its heart on its sleeve. And so it's not all about the stick. So really, really encouraging to see that this opportunity for you and your team to express that element of your service in our community through the Napier Assist program. It's a wonderful way and another example where our community get to interact with the key members of this council, and that's you, our staff. So well done on the work that you're doing, and I'm really excited about where this is going. Could you give me a little bit more information about the, open hour? Sorry, the open hour dates, times, etc., please.
Rachel, maybe we'll just ask if that could be forwarded to Councillor Tapani. I know there's an invitation, so we'll get that sent out.
And thank you, Councillor Tapani. We're really enjoying being able to be on this end of the regulatory spectrum as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, team. And just briefly, councillors, moving on to the second management announcement, you'll remember Michelle Gregg spoke to us about the review of mobility parking at, I believe it was People and Places Committee, and there was a comment there that wasn't going to include the regulatory components of parking, and so I just asked Rachel if she could briefly update us on how they're feeding into that.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So we, myself and Debbie Hill, who's the team leader for parking, are very much involved in the review of the accessible parking for Napier. And we've been working with Michelle and her team. On the regulatory side of things, it's pretty straightforward in that what is marked is enforced. And when the review and the recommendations of the review roll out, then there will be new and improved, I would imagine, parking for groups to be able to access Napier better, and regulation of that will also be a component, but is not the main. The main outcome is actually that we have a very accessible city. In terms of regulation of what is currently, so the disability parks that are marked currently are enforced by our parking team, and there's not much discretion in that. It is that you either have a mobility permit and it's displayed, or it's not, and you don't. The infringements are issued without discretion, except for if someone were in the vehicle, we might ask them to move it. If there's someone in the vehicle who says that they do have a permit but they just don't have it with them, then we might take their details and ask them to give us a confirmation that they have that permit. But otherwise, if someone's parked there who is not authorised to park there, then they will receive a ticket. The ticket is $150. That is set by Ministry of Justice. That's not something that we can change. And it was interesting, I was talking to the parking team about this, and they have been noticing, which is probably what's coming out, is there has been a lot more non-compliance around those parks just this year, actually. And so I had a look at the infringements, and for this year to date, we've issued 117 parking infringements for people parking in those areas, compared to last year was 95 for the whole year. So the team have taken quite a bit more of a focus on it, noticing that non-compliance, and they really have. They have no tolerance for it. They have the same values as anyone, and they really take a strong approach with it. So, but that's all we can do. We can just enforce what is there. Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. Are there any questions on the mobility parking before we move on? There being none, thank you very much for both of the management updates, team. Appreciate it. I now ask for a mover and seconder that the minutes of the Future Napier Committee on 16th of June be taken as a true and correct record. Moved by Councillor Crown, seconded by Councillor Mawson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. I'd like to welcome Luke Johnson up to present the first paper to us, the Resource Consent Activity Update. Welcome.
Kia ora.
Tēnā koe.
By way of update for the resource consenting team, this committee meeting, I can advise that we have seen another downturn in the resource consenting numbers by approximately 30%. However, I do note that the subdivision certificate 224 certificates have seen quite a large increase, up to 15 in comparison to 7 at the same time last year. I'd also like to point out that our average processing times have been reduced from 23 days in the last 12 months, for the 12-month period of 2021, to 17 days, which I think is really good in comparison to some other councils, in the surrounding regions. By way of update around some more significant developments that we've currently assessing within the team, 28 Hyderabad Road for a digital sign. This sign's a third-party digital sign. The application is under assessment at the moment. A Section 92 request has been issued, and the applicant is currently working on some additional landscape and visual impact assessment work. 72 West Quay, there was a variation application submitted in regard to some minor amendments to the layout of the ground level, and then a change in the types of residential accommodation that are proposed on the upper levels. That application is also under Section 92 request, and the applicant has provided a partial response to that to date. 69 Harding Road, the demolition of an existing dwelling and the proposed construction of a new dwelling is currently under consideration from a hearings commission meeting, and we're expecting to make a determination on that in due course. And finally, 115 Carlisle Street, the expansion of Bayswater car yard in the showroom. The public notification submission period has now ended, and the submissions have been forwarded to the applicant for consideration and response. I'm now happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Luke. Appreciate it. How many submissions did you receive on that last one?
On the Bayswater, offhand I couldn't tell you. I know there were quite a few though.
Quite a number. Thank you. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Taylor?
I just wanted to know, has the hearings committee concluded? And I don't want to know the result, but have parties been notified?
So the short answer is no. So the hearing in relation to 69 Harding Road was held last week. It was adjourned until Tuesday this week, where we received a right of reply by writing. The hearings committee, or the panel, is going to close the hearing, which will probably happen this week, and then we have 20 working days to release our decision.
Thank you.
Councillor Tapani.
Greetings, Luke. My question is with regards to 69 Harding Road. Are there any classifications other than the heritage referred to in the paper, or cultural matters of significance associated with that 1800 building which was built in the 1800s?
No, the considerations that have been given to the application within the assessment have covered everything that is considered significant. It's not within an overlay area of significance to Māori.
And the building itself, sorry, supplementary, and the building itself, outside of Māori considerations, doesn't have any historical unique value to the establishment of Napier, etc. It's just another building.
Through the chair,
I'd rather we just stay away from the inquiry. It's really it's under the hearing at the moment, and I think we need to let that process give it the respect it deserves. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, happy to answer that question and say that is a matter for consideration in the deliberation.
Thank you for jumping in there.
If there's no further questions, I will ask for a mover and a seconder for the officer's recommendation to receive the report, being moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Price. Either of you wish to speak?
It's great to have the update, so thank you very much.
Pretty similar. It's really good, good paper.
Thank you. If there's no further comments, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Luke. Right, I'll now invite Fleur Lincoln and Bill Roberts to come and present to us paper number 2, the Better Off Funding Tranche 1.
There's some pterodon in there, it's okay.
Oh, I've got questions here I've already prepared for them, just so you know.
You're the second person who's flagged that with me. Kia ora, welcome team.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Through the chair, Madam Chair. So the purpose of this report is to present Council with 3 project package options for the Central Government's Better Off Fund, and to seek direction on which package to further develop for an application to the Department of Internal Affairs. So this report follows a Council workshop at which a project package was presented for funding. The package presented is represented in this report as option C. At the workshop, councillors expressed a desire to use some of the funds for quick win type initiatives that would deliver physical improvements for communities within a timely manner, and Mayor Wise kindly collated ideas from councillors for this and provided them to officers, and this list is provided verbatim in attachment 2 of this report. Officers then met with various managers within council to seek feedback on these initiatives, and we're fortunate some of them are with us here today, and determine whether the delivery of these initiatives are feasible, would deliver good outcomes, and would be achievable within a short time frame, or whether they're already in the process of being implemented. So attachment 2 captures the feedback received from those officers. The feedback formed from the basis of which initiatives would be included in a quick wins package in options A and B.
Options A and B present 2 options for the quick wins package. Option A being of a higher value and including more initiatives within it. I note that there's an error in the quick wins package for option A with regards to the disability strategy implementation. There are 2 figures for this initiative, and combined the package for this initiative should read $270,000. Both options A and B include a $500,000 figure for building mana whenua capacity, and although this doesn't match the contribution being applied for by Hastings District Council, the figure is considered commensurate to the number of mana whenua entities Council will be working alongside, and it also acknowledges the lesser allocation available to this Council. I also note that the officer's recommendation is seeking an in-principle direction from Council, which provides scope for further engagement with mana whenua on this. Officers recommend option B for the application to the Department of Internal Affairs. We believe that this achieves a balance of funding, the delivery of larger scale projects with a longer time frame for delivery, with funding to be able to deliver small-scale initiatives with a shorter time frame for delivery. Officer availability and workloads have also been considered, given Council's substantial capital delivery program. Quick win initiatives are comparatively labour intensive to deliver, and option B presents what we believe is a manageable list of projects. As Bill said earlier, we do have a number of officers available in person and online, and would be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Fleur, and members, just noting that we do have a number of sort of subject matter experts here with us today who are able to address particularly items on the quick win list, as this is the first time it's come back to us in this form, so I appreciate you pulling that together too. Thank you, team. I'll open it up for comments or questions, and we'll start with that. I have Councillor Tapani.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Spear.
Sorry,
Spear
Deputy Mayor, Chair. Tricky. I'm trying to be as delicate as I can because I'm seeing a lot of red flags in the paper, not necessarily with our staff's work, but just reiterating some of the concerns that I heard from local government national conference last week around what is a national problem for our local authorities in addressing engagement and consultation with iwi. And so my questions are going to focus particularly on seeking some indicators from you around the engagement with iwi in this space. So as I read through the paper, it spoke about the fact that this funding does have a large barb or hook or hinge, I think was the word used in the paper, associated with iwi engagement and consultation. So I'd love to understand more about that hinge, what that looks like for us going forward, its value with regards to its role within the process. And the second question, there are others, but I'll just ask these two for now. The second question is around iwi capability. You referred to a fair allocation, or whatever the term was, with regards to the number of iwi entities in our area. That's a really interesting matrix to use in order to equip or build capacity in those spaces, because it doesn't sort of reflect the different stages of each entity. And so I'd love to understand more around that rationale and how we're able to, I know it's still indicative at this stage, and again, every council is trying to understand this challenge for themselves. So I'm looking for direction and encouraging comments around where our thinking is in that space. So I'll lay those two on the table now, if I can, Madam Chair, and see where we go to from there.
Through the chair, hei pātai pai, nā te mea, hei kaupapa tino whakahirahira, hei kaupapa nui, hi. So acknowledging Councillor Tapani's question, it's a complex area, and he sees red flags, and we do also. It is a matter of complexity. So I guess we'll address it in three parts, and we'll look first of all about what we've carried out so far, cool. and then we can go on and talk a bit about how we're sort of seeking to address some of those issues, and also the last part I'll sort of ask Richard Monica to help out with some of the thinking around the larger regional capability and capacity question. First of all, obviously, Te Waka Rangipu is our Māori advisory, and that was our first starting point that we've been to already, and we spent time with the team going through the list of both the major sort of the big rock projects, and also looking at the quick wins packages individually as well. And for each of those, we then discussed what has been carried out in the way of engagement and who with. And as you say, there's a matrix approach that we would say, okay, for this project, we've done this, we've done that, we've done that. Part of the actual the form filling, it's actually to cover off which groups, entities, organisations, iwi, hapu, post-settlement government entities, etc. Who have we engaged with exactly? And then the second one is, what are the methods of engagement? Was it hui? Was it wānanga? Was it consultation, subsequent feedback? And where were we with those? And then the final part of the questions is ideas, suggestions, and issues of concern that have been raised, and what steps have been taken to address those. So that's sort of part one.
Sure, okay.
Well, did you just want to add a time frame to those? A loose one. I realise this is the early stages around that engagement. When we talk about going through those different stages, you've achieved those stages, or you're looking to enter into those?
Both.
Both. Cool. And the time frame roughly?
Well, obviously a lot of it will depend on the individual project. Some of the quick wins we haven't consulted on at all. Some of the larger things, such as the Inner Harbour project, sort of predates me, and I understand there's been consultation previously carried out, and work is ongoing on those. So it all depends which project, really.
And can I just, through the chair, it's also the capacity that we have on the other side with mana whenua. And as we all know, the capacity of the resource is not as strong as council. So we need to understand what their time frame for everything else is as well. So asking the timeline on that is actually a bit early to give you an answer on that, because of what our entities on the other side, what they can do.
Thank you. That clarifies. I'll rephrase the question. Sorry, Madam Chair. Has DIA placed any time constraints on this engagement process? That's probably a better way to ask the question.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, so we have a date in which we have to make the application by, which is in September. The date?
30th of September.
30th of September.
Drop dead date.
And obviously we'd like to have everything pulled together before then so that we can properly do an application. So I guess what we're seeking today is to put forward this list. Some of them are major projects which in themselves have had considerable mana whenua engagement, right through to things like co-design. And then there's a list of the smaller quick wins projects which we've managed to pull together quite quickly. And so I guess we've had very little time to be able to fully engage with mana whenua on those quick win projects. However, the advice that we've got from Te Waka Rangapu is that following this hui, that we would then communicate with our mana whenua partners on the types of projects that we'd be putting forward for this funding. Tranche 2 of this fund certainly seeks to have much more full engagement with mana whenua, and it also gives us much more time in which to do that. And so I would imagine that for Tranche 2, we would be looking to be quite different in our approach with putting together a proposal and coming up with a list of projects.
Awesome. One last question, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to Council by extension. So, thank you. Those were really difficult questions to address, particularly in a public forum, so well done. The only other thing I have is, given the paper speaks to around building iwi capability and capacity so that we can become stronger partners together, I notice option C has $0 assigned to iwi capacity. So is option C actually an option if we have an obligation to do iwi capability in this place?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So option C was essentially an option that was presented at the workshop, where we presented the council with a number of projects. This was one of the ideas, but the option that we presented went over the allocated amount that we had, and so that just demonstrates the difficulty that we had in actually trying to allocate funding for a number of those projects, and the choices that we had to make with that. So there was further discussion after that workshop, and it was felt that we were really keen to allocate some funding to this, and so that is the options A and B that have been presented to you today. And in terms of the amount that's allocated in those options, I just wonder whether, Richard, you might like to speak to that.
Yeah, thanks, Viv. Through the chair, the the pressure on our iwi partners to be able to meet the things that we need to do with them is immense, and the resourcing for them is not given by central government either. So I'll give you an example that we're sort of working with our colleagues in Hastings District Council and the Regional Council as well, is on the future development strategy, which we have to do as a collective by 2024. And that might sound like a couple of years away. Well, and in terms of what we're talking about, if you think about our district plan, for example, it's no small matter to pump that out. And we're supposed to have iwi alongside in a meaningful way the whole way through as partners. If we think about our own mana ahuriri, and they've just come through the settlement phase, they're trying to grapple with all sorts of different pressures on them, let alone something like a future development strategy. And they actually don't have planners and engineers and all that sort of thing like the council does to engage with. So we don't, it's not really the right thing to be talking to a board about those kind of matters. So what the concept was behind this Better Off funding was to try and provide capacity, particularly in the planning, the resource management space, for our iwi partners across the region really, but and using in part the Better Off funding for that. It is not at all landed in terms of who that goes to and how that is materialises, and in terms of are we talking about a one kind of resource for the whole region in a sort of a Ngaitahu sort of sense, or are we going to the individual PSGEs or the tai whenuas, or it's not landed at all. So the way I think is to look at this is kind of like good faith, a good faith try at being good to our iwi partners in terms of trying to resource something for the future. And on top of that, we've got the settlement also goes into Te Murawai o Te Whanga, for example. We get 100,000 for the council to administer that. There is no money there for paying anybody to participate in that process. There's no resourcing to have technical support for that. So how is that going to happen? It's got to come from somewhere. So in terms of that 500,000, it is like this, and we don't know how that's going to land particularly. What we do know is that Hastings have indicated that they are looking at doing a million into that process. The only thought around why 500 and not a million is that Aotearoa is quite a lot smaller than Hastings and deals with less PSGEs and things like that. But honestly, that is up to you as governors to come up with the magical amount that is appropriate. So I hope that gives some context to how that's emerged, that fund.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for entertaining my line of questions, and the answers from staff were exemplary. They showed exactly the type of thinking I was looking for. Kia ora.
Very good. Thank you. Mayor Wise.
Thank you, and through the chair. So just wanting some clarity as to the recommendation for option B. Is part of the basis for that recommendation the ability to actually deliver projects?
We through the chair, great question. We had a nervousness about the weight of work on the officers and capability and capacity to deliver, which is why we started off with a smaller list, and why we're recommending B. Sometimes, of course, you can throw as much money as something as you like, and there's only a limited number of people to deliver it, so it isn't actually always a budget issue that is the issue. There's all sorts of supply chain constraints, et cetera, et cetera. So that was our thinking behind the recommendation of B.
Thank you. And just a follow-on question, if I may. And so I've sort of been looking at the options and considering perhaps a hybrid of Quick Wins Package 1 and 2. So I guess the question is, if we were to increase, I think the way I looked at it, it was increasing the Quick Wins to about 840k. It was essentially taking the higher amount of 200 for the disability strategy and including the pedestrian pathway lighting for Taradale and the CBD, including those, and reducing either the library or the CBD West revitalisation to fund that. So I guess there's two questions. One would be, what would your level of confidence be in the capacity to deliver those two additional Quick Wins, and how would that impact the reduced budgets? How would that impact those other two projects? So there's a lot in there, sorry.
So reduce one. To summarise, slightly reducing library and CBD West and increasing the disability and lighting packages.
Correct.
So I guess the question is to the specific areas.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair. So with the disability strategy Quick Wins, adding, increasing the amount to the 270 that's in the option A would have lesser impact on staffing than having a new project, because there's a certain economies of scale in doing a project and just doing more of that project. So I think that the impact on staffing would probably be not so much for that one.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the pedestrian pathway lighting for Taradale and the CBD, so that would obviously be a new project that would be brought into option B. I wonder, Georgina, are you able to speak to this one around capacity and capability to deliver this project?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. With regard to the physical build and the impact that reducing the budgets that we've got allocated in there, the impact that would have is we would just value engineer the design and the materials, so you typically would design to the budget provided. So yes, it's possible to reduce the amount that's allocated to either the CBD West revitalisation or the library public realm, and utilise whatever budget's allocated and value engineer your design to suit, because neither of them have been undertaken at this point, and we would just ensure that the budget allocated is what is met with the design proposed.
And with regards to the ability to deliver the pedestrian pathway lighting and confidence around that, if we opted to include that as part of the...
Through you, Madam Chair. I don't know the detail about that one, but it'd be a similar proposition to George's. I think there's some opportunity just to make the requirements meet the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think what we're doing, team, is we're looking at the Quick Wins package, and I'm happy to take discussion on what should be in and out of that. We've obviously heard from the Mayor that there's an option there around increasing as part of package 2 Quick Wins, the money spent on disability in a hybrid to pull across the pedestrian pathway lighting in the CBD and Taradale. I think that would be worthy of just opening up for discussion around where members are sitting. Bearing in mind we have the full list in attachment 2 of all of the Quick Win projects, and that this is just a set of recommendations from staff around what's available to be delivered within the budgets they're talking about. So, Councillor McGrath and then Councillor Price.
Yeah, just through the chair, I was just looking at the Park Island walkways.
Mm-hmm.
I see that one option's got 200,000, one's got 100,000. By halving it, if there's a specific path or project in mind, I'd hate to think we'd get halfway down the track, literally, and have to stop. I know we did that at Mariwa Park, and we got quite a bit of grief. One park went left and went somewhere, and the other one went about 5 metres and stopped. And we got a bit of grief. By cutting back as we have on here, is it going to leave us in the middle of nowhere?
Another great question, and through the chair,
Bill, if it's all right with you, I just have a comment from Richard Miniker. I was going to say Mr. Miniker. But could you also just draw my attention to where that reduction is? Is that in the attachment
Just
two?
in the quick win package, package 1 and 2.
First,
It's got the Park Island walkways,
Thank you.
200,000, and package 2, Park Island walkways, 100,000.
Thank you.
And just my comment is really just to say that take these numbers with a bit of a pinch of salt. They're a little bit soft because of the timeframes we've had to be able to get something meaningful in front of you. And we expect that the process going forward is still pretty fluid, and there'll be time to massage that into the places that you want it to go. So we're not intending to do, 3/4 of a pathway and that kind of thing. We need to go and unbundle that properly and make sure that we're actually delivering something meaningful from those numbers, and that'll take a bit of time. There is just not the amount of time to get that perfectly in front of you at this stage.
Just through the chair, I guess what I was highlighting is I don't want us to get to a stage where we say, actually, 100,000 won't do it, so we won't do the project. So I'm just highlighting that.
Through the chair, and I'll invite Jason Tickner to sort of comment as well. A couple of these things were quite expandable or contractable depending on how much was available. So we could go between 500,000 to $1 million on Park Island walkways, but we just did a per meterage. But Jason will take whatever we can give him.
I think what I'm taking from staff, Councillor McGrath, is you can have some confidence that we wouldn't part deliver or not deliver at all with the budget. We would engineer, and I see we have Mr. Tickner with us, if you've got any further comments as well.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. Yeah, completely. We've got probably well over $1 million of pathways that were designed in the original master plan for Park Island. We would just look through those with the budget that we are allocated, if we are granted the budget, and work out what we get best bang for buck for in relation to building one of those pathway linkages. We also could look at what budget we have for new pathways in the sports ground budget as well, and contribute to that to make sure we don't end up with a pathway to nowhere.
Yeah, and I guess when I put this forward, we have a bridge that we've put across to Park Island, and it doesn't have a pathway going on from it. So I guess this was an opportunity to have that pathway go somewhere. I hate to think we've undercut it.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Councillor Price.
So my question's probably been answered, and all I make is the comment that when we do things, do it once and do it properly, and if we can't, we shouldn't.
Thank you.
Did you want more?
Have you got more?
No.
All right. Councillor Crown.
Thank you, through the chair. So basically today, correct me if I'm wrong, what staff are looking for is to make sure that we've got the correct projects in here rather than the correct value as such.
Correct.
Yeah? Great. Awesome, thanks.
Thank you. And while we're speaking to the correct projects, I'd just note that we need to cross out the word demolish or refurbish next to Anderson Park, which demolish isn't an option.
Yeah, I guess through you, Madam Chair, we would basically take advice on costings from Jason Tickner, but 40,000 was based on the demolish option, so it would be a different sum.
And through you, Madam Chair, and I'm happy to talk to that because this is part of some wider works that you're most likely aware of. That was through the last long-term plan for a second stage development for the Anderson Park master plan, and it is part of the scoping exercise. So we do have some budget just through the initiate phase of the project at the moment, which we are undertaking investigation. If it's agreed that the building is completely staying, then more of that budget from that existing project will sit with that. But any more or additional budget provided would definitely help us deliver that and allow us to deliver further improvements to that reserve with less impact on the ratepayer. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to provide Council a little bit more context to that project, Councillor Taylor will remember when we were the two of us working on the design of the playground at Anderson Park, the retention of the I think it's hexagonal toilet block was a specific piece that was mentioned in that design because of its, I want to use the word heritage, but it's more around its association with that park in the past and its special shape. And it was flagged to be redeveloped into a leasable space of some sort in the future. So that's why I say very strongly the demolish needs to come off the table. I think that's just been lost in translation over time around the intention of leaving that block there. But I mean, I personally would support enough money being given to that project that it could be initiated. However, I note it's very competing projects for funding, and also that there are available other sources of funding, as Mr. Tickner mentioned. So wherever we land on that, I will be fine as long as the word demolish is removed. Thank you. Mayor Wise.
Through the Chair, just wanting to clarify the CBD West revitalisation, in which we've got that fantastic attachment showing what the sort of concept is there. So the 1.65 million, that is for a fully completed design and build. It will be a final completed product. Is that correct?
We'll invite Georgina back up.
Through you, Madam Chair. Once again, that concept was just to give you an idea of the area that we're talking about. And again, there isn't really a design necessarily in place. So we would be looking to, yes, absolutely do the design and undertake the implementation, but it would be obviously needing to be value engineered to the budget.
Yes. And I guess you're just seeking clarity that it was to have a fully completed build was the objective of it.
Yes, so the scale of the budget will dictate the scale and scope of the project. And obviously there's taking into account the quality of materials that you choose. So it may be that you go for a higher quality, which means the area in question would be smaller.
Thank you.
If I could just add, I think what we would see is that the next annual planning round will kind of tidy up a lot of these. So, you know, the comment that we were looking at the kind of the list of projects and with a sort of the costings is our best guess, and that it needs to be refined. You've already heard there's probably other pots that need to join things to make sure we get completion of projects, that kind of thing. And so that whole package should come forward through the annual plan in due course.
And just further to that, you'll recall that the package that we presented at the workshop was for $1.1 million for the design, the redesign of the Emerson Street CBD area. And the feedback that we got back from councillors was that they'd like to see more action. And so that was what we did. We narrowed it down to a specific part of the CBD that actually needed a lot more focus, and looked and put in a figure there that we would look to design and deliver that project.
Great, thank you.
Now, if there's no more discussion, I've been taking a few notes around the things that have been raised, and I wonder if it would be worth, if we were all just looking at the table on number 13. I think what's been substantially proposed is an amendment to option B with a hybrid between the quick win 2 packages. So if I was to run through where I've landed, we could discuss that and listening to the conversation. Yeah. So if we're looking at option B, the library part funded option, first 2 items would remain the same. The library public realm would go down by 90,000, and that 90,000 would be applied to the quick wins package for disability strategy quick wins, raising it to 200,000.
Through the Chair, I note that Fleur was referring to the 270 because that's their separate 70,000 item. Do they have to be joined together, or could we have it at 200?
No, it was just, I was just noting that, that there was an error because of the way that we'd previously
been presented.
written.
Yeah,
the-
okay.
had the tables and stuff, so we, that figure is combined, but we could make it what?
Keep it separate.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. So carrying on, I then have under CBD West Revitalisation a reduction of 240,000 from that, which is to be pulled into the Quick Wins Package Hybrid 2, adding pedestrian pathway lighting for the CBD in Taradale.
Through the chair, I don't think that I would support that reduction in the CBD West revitalisation now having further information on that.
Okay. A more even split between the two, library and CBD West?
Or I think I would probably see the library, prefer to see the library reduced, and then we start addressing the gap for that through the annual plan process. Just a suggestion.
Yep, so not touching any reductions in the CBD West revitalisation, keeping that at 1650?
Correct.
Okay. Happy to propose that. Yeah, so essentially we still end up with the same, but all reductions coming off the library line under option B. I'm not sure if staff have a Word copy of this that would be helpful to get up on screen. If we do.
I think it was a PDF version that we provided to governance, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Richard's just highlighted with us, of course, as well, that our resolution is in principle, and we've already had confirmation that these numbers are indicative, and we are talking specifically around the projects. But I note, the adding in, essentially, I think staff can take two things away. One, we'd like to assign more to the disability strategy quick win, and two is that we'd like the pedestrian pathway lighting in CBD and Taradale added to the quick wins package 2, just to summarise that up.
Yeah, so we've taken your notes, and we can obviously circulate a new table following this, if that helps.
Which can be presented at the full council meeting.
Yeah.
No, it's this table.
Yeah.
I was talking about. And yeah, we'll go to full council.
Yeah.
And just in terms of discussion from myself, I heard from Jason around that Anderson Park refurbishing the toilet block that has been sitting there for a number of years as well. So if there is funding available to boost that up to help that project get started,
yeah, we can look at
that comes from me as well. Right. Is there some discussion to where we've landed there? Team's working on getting that up on the screen for us.
No.
Councillor Taylor.
No, I think, we've, the officers have gone away and done, I think, a wonderful job. We've just done some minor tweaking, and they can now prepare a final breakdown as best they possibly can with indicative prices. They're not set, and that we can then finalise this at our full council meeting. So it gives us that opportunity between now and then.
Sounds good. All right, so I think if there's no further discussion, we'll move to the resolution. Sorry, Carolyn, to make you rush about doing that. So our I think we're all right now. Thank you. I think we're all right. Thank you. So our first resolution A was note that as part of the central government's Three Waters program, it is made available tranche 1, better off funding to invest in the future of local government, and B is to resolve that Napier City applies to this fund to direct in principle towards the projects, and we'll just add, including the minor amendments as set out in attachment 1, option B. Do I have a mover and seconder for those? Moved by Councillor Crown, seconded by Councillor Mawson. Councillor Crown.
Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm speaking in support of the motion in front of us today, but I do want to take the opportunity to say a couple of things. So this is part of a reform support package, the Better Off funding of around $2.5 billion. $34 million has been spent on developing and attempting to sell the idea of Three Waters to the public. Add to that the millions of dollars that they've provided to councils in regards to transition. Would this money have not been better spent in assisting councils to maintain and replace water-related infrastructure and developing a better funding model that allows communities to retain ownership of the assets that they have paid for over generations? And I think that the answer is clear and the irony not lost on anyone sitting around this table today, or for many in our community. Napier's pipes and network are not in the state that is often referred to or that people believe it to be. Our actual leakage rate is much lower than the number that we used when we went through our chlorine-free review, which was 30%. It's closer to 13%. We've budgeted $404 million over the next 10 years, and the government has only committed a third of that to Napier through their Three Waters model. We have a new reservoir planned and communicated to the public since early 2021. We've done the controlled water areas, and 2 new low manganese bores are about to come online. So we are getting it done. Alongside these new capital investments, we have our BAU, and we have managed to deliver the extra work that had to be programmed to make the most of the transition funding government provided. So we are doing the things that our community have asked us for and told us that they want. I don't think that widening the distance between the user and governors of these assets and services will make it any easier for the people to be heard. We don't need Three Waters. We need tighter regulation around water quality and investment, as well as smarter, more effective funding mechanisms so that our communities can ensure their infrastructure is maintained and sustainable. However, we take the opportunity as it stands in front of us. I think that the complexities of planning such a project proposal have been well considered and balanced by our council officers. And the community will certainly benefit from the projects in the option B that we've looked at and the quick wins options that we're looking to agree to spend this funding on. I'm particularly pleased to see the CBD upgrades around the western end of Emerson Street and Clive Square, the Waka Hub and iwi capability to be prioritised, as well as funding to implement our disability strategy. And also there are very good indicators in the paper regarding the potential Tranche 2 projects. I'll take the opportunity to plug the storyboarding, a Napier type day, and the app for our community to easier log issues to us through. I just think that it's a shame that this is how we've acquired the ability to pay for these projects.
That's what bribe money's for.
Thank you, Councillor Crown. Councillor Mawson.
Hard act to follow, but I agree with everything that Councillor Crown has just said. It's a little bit hard to be sort of excited about spending this money being as what it's kind of a bit of a payoff. But just to compliment both officers and my colleagues around the table in supplying extra funding for the disability strategy. You know, Napier does have a higher proportion of seniors here in Napier than the national average, and of course 1 in 4 persons in New Zealand has a disability of some form. So yeah, great to have some movement in this space, and I look forward to this coming back to us at full council. And thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mawson. If there's no further discussion, I will put the motion. So all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Bill and Fleur, and the rest of the team for all of your work.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'd now like to invite Caroline Thompson to join us. She's presenting our final paper, the proposed change in financial contributions policy. Kia ora.
Thank you. So this report is seeking approval to proceed with a project to amend the financial contributions policy through the annual plan process. The policy review is a cross-council project, and it will involve staff from infrastructure, city strategy and finance. You may recall through the 21-31 long-term plan process that Council amended the financial contributions policy by removing the development contributions to address some issues in the policy where the DCs could be used for non-residential development. At the time, it was agreed that reverting to financial contributions only was a short-term measure, and council would reassess as part of the review of the district plan so that the policy aligns with the latest spatial plan and growth implications and projections. The reason for updating the policy is to ensure that development or growth is funding the costs that council incurs to enable development and to minimise the risk of ratepayers being required to fund these costs. It is proposed that the work is undertaken to update the policy to incorporate new DCs for specific areas, as DCs provide more flexibility and can be easily updated through the annual plan or long-term plan process, whereas the calculations for financial contributions can only be updated with a change to the district plan. The policy review would also ensure that there are no funding gaps between the escalating cost of capital for infrastructure and development funding. The next steps would be to come back to council later this year in a workshop to present the new calculations and any proposed policy changes before proceeding with any changes through the annual plan consultation process. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Caroline. Do I have any questions from councillors? I think the paper sets it out really well. I have Councillor Bogue.
Yes, thank you very much, Caroline. And I appreciate we don't have this policy in front of us at the moment. I'm just a bit concerned that in trying to rectify this balance between the ratepayers and the developers, that the policy may be a real disincentive for developers who are wanting to, help us with our housing shortage. So I'm not quite sure how that will be, how you'll calculate that, but I'm hoping that we come up with a policy that's not so harsh that it will be a disincentive for developers who are going to hopefully provide some of the thousands of homes, affordable and otherwise, that we need over the next 10 or 20 years.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm not sure if that's a question, but just a sort of a statement about where one concern I have.
Thank you, Councillor Bogue. I'll ask Mr Minaker if he would like to make a comment.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. This paper is really about the mechanism for how we collect, and really what it's saying is that if we do it through the kind of district plan and have to do plan changes and things like that, it's very slow and we won't be able to have the right mechanism in place. So in terms of your question, Councillor Bogue, the principles around who pays they're quite clear and well established, and it's not a matter of disincentivising, it's more a matter of apportioning the fair and reasonable cost to where it lies. So the idea with new development is that the developer does actually pay for their fair share, and it doesn't fall to the existing ratepayer base who already have to pick up the maintenance and ongoing costs of current pipes and reticulation and those sorts of things.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have any more questions or comments, I'll ask for a mover of the officer's recommendation. Moved by Mayor Wise, seconded by Councillor Price. Do you have any further comment?
No further comments.
There being no comments, I'll open the floor. If there's nothing further from the team, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. And I'll close the meeting. We'll have 5 minutes and I'll pass back over to Councillor Price.